Coming up today, lawmakers agree to pass more than 200 bills at the final National Assembly session of the year. The task of redrawing the electoral map will be given to the nation's election watchdog after the parties failed to reach a compromise. North Korea holds a state funeral for its former point man on inter-Korean relations, Kim Yang-gon, who died this week in a car accident. Plus, 2016 is just 12 hours away in Korea. We take a look at what we might be able to expect in the year of the fire monkey. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Thursday, the 31st of December. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us on New Year's Eve. I'm Mark Broom. And we start at Korea's National Assembly, and it looks like lawmakers will end the year with some unfinished business they'll have to carry into 2016. There's a long list of bills up for consideration, and lawmakers have decided to vote on 212 of them today, while leaving other more contentious bills, including ones related to labour reform and revitalising the economy, for a later date. Another pending task for lawmakers is the redrawing of the country's electoral map ahead of a general election set for April of next year. Lawmakers have come up with a deal, have to come up with a deal by midnight today when the current map expires. And if they fail, that man there, National Assembly Speaker Jong-un, says he will ask the National Election Commission to take up the task. The current map was ruled unconstitutional because it didn't reflect changes in the population. Now, amid mounting speculation over the death of high-ranking North Korean official Kim Yang-gon, state leader Kim Jong-un on Wednesday visited the funeral parlor where the official is laid to rest. According to Pyongyang's state-run Korean Central News Agency, the leader paid his respects, saying Kim Yang-gon was a loyal comrade who was irreplaceable. The leader also said the country will not forget Kim's contributions to the ruling Workers' Party. Kim Yang-gon was a party secretary and the North's point man on inter-Korean relations. His state funeral was scheduled for 8 a.m. Thursday Korean time, so from around 4 hours ago, but there have been no reports out of North Korea as of yet about that state funeral. The KCNA reported that Kim Yang-gon died in a car accident on Tuesday. His death follows those of other high-ranking officials since Kim Jong-un took power in late 2011. Now, staying in North Korea, and recent satellite imagery shows the regime is forging ahead with the excavation of a new tunnel at its Punggye-ri nuclear test site. North Korea monitoring website 38 North released on Wednesday the new high-resolution imagery taken in early December. It explained that the presence of mining cart tracks shows excavation work is happening, but there's no indication of when it will actually be completed. The website added new activity has also been identified at a spoil bank created by the excavation of the tunnel at the North Portal, and that's been underway since May 2013. Still, it does remain unclear whether the activity is associated with maintenance or some other purpose. Now, as controversy continues to abound over the recently agreed deal between Seoul and Tokyo over Japan's wartime sexual slavery, Korea's foreign minister has, for the first time, briefed lawmakers on how the agreement was actually reached. Explaining the negotiation process, Yoon Byung-se stressed that the Korean government clearly held Japan responsible for its sexual enslavement of tens of thousands of Korean women before and during World War II. He also emphasized that this was the first time Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has directly apologized to the victims, noting that he and the government are aware of the rising discontent among the surviving victims and the public. Minister Yoon explained that Japan conceded to a lot of Seoul's demands, so the government decided to seize the opportunity to resolve the issue before it became permanently unsolvable. And as a follow-up to that story, the agreement between Seoul and Tokyo on Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women is to be reviewed in individual cases in a local court. Kim Yang-gon explains.
The impact of the landmark deal between Korea and Japan on Japan's wartime sex slavery on individual compensation claims will soon be tested in a Korean court. The trial date hasn't yet been announced, but the case is based on a request for mediation made in August 2013 by 12 surviving victims, who are also seeking compensation in the amount of $85,000 each. The Japanese government rejected the proceedings, and after 2 more failed attempts at mediation, the Seoul Central District Court accepted a request by the plaintiffs in October of this year for a formal trial against the Japanese government. In Korea, a trial can proceed without the presence of the defendant. 2 other women have since died, so the case will now proceed with the 10 remaining plaintiffs. During the upcoming trial, the part of the recent deal between Seoul and Tokyo on the sex slavery issue that says it is final and irreversible is expected to become a critical sticking point. However, some also speculate the recent deal might not affect the case due to precedents set by previous cases concerning the 1965 Korea-Japan Claims Settlement Agreement. In that agreement, Tokyo claims it settled all issues of compensation to victims of forced labor during Japan's colonial rule of Korea. And in 2012, the Supreme Court of Korea ruled that the 1965 agreement did not cover individual compensation claims brought by people who are forced to serve in the military during the colonial era. Kim Yang-gon, Arirang News.
Now, for several days, large swathes of northeastern China have been blanketed in thick layers of heavy smog, and on this Thursday, the last day of 2015, a cloud of fine dust is affecting the Korean peninsula as northwesterly winds are forecast to carry the smog in from China today. Air quality is likely to be bad across most of the country throughout this New Year's Eve, including the west coast. So those of you planning to watch the last sunset of the year in Korea are advised to take the necessary precautions, such as wearing a face mask. Weather authorities say strong winds will help disperse the smog from New Year's Day. Korea's consumer prices increased at a record low rate this year, falling well short of the government's target. Statistics Korea says prices edged up just 0.7% this year, a touch lower than the fall in 1999 in the aftermath of the Asian financial crisis. Low oil prices dragged inflation down by nearly 1 whole percentage point this year, but analysts do expect that effect to diminish somewhat, at least in 2016. Just looking at December, though, we do see a different picture. Consumer prices rose 1.3% on year, and that is the fastest pace in almost a year and a half. The agency attributes the pickup this month to government efforts to stave off deflation. Early this month, the Bank of Korea cut its inflation target to 2% for the next 3 years. That's down from 2.5% to 3.5% for the 2013 to 2015 period. Now, 2015 was the year of the golden sheep, an animal that is associated with peace, harmony and protection. But as we prepare to enter the year of the fire monkey, we might see our lives take a more feisty turn. Those born under the monkey's realm are said to be smart, entertaining, but sometimes a little mischievous. Oh Soo-young has the details.
There's a Chinese proverb that says an animal hides in your heart. For the new year, in Eastern Asian cultures, including Korea, that animal will be the monkey. In the 12-year zodiac cycle, the zodiac monkey comes with one of 5 natural elements: water, earth, metal, wood and fire. 2016 celebrates the fire monkey.
It's believed the Chinese zodiac culture was introduced around the time of the Three Kingdoms. It also spread to East and Southeast Asian regions, but its impact on Korea was particularly strong.
And at the National Folk Museum, visitors can spot the zodiac monkey in various aspects of Korean culture. The artifacts portray different figurative meanings of the monkey, with its most prominent characteristics being intelligence and maternal love. In art and pottery, monkeys symbolized power and success, so they were often engraved into stationery and drawn with peaches and deer to amplify luck. But the opposite is true for folktales and poetry, where monkeys represent loneliness or trickery. As one of the zodiac guardians, their red faces were believed to be charged with the yang energy, which could ward off evil spirits. So the monkey's face was painted on masks for traditional dancers and placed on roof tiles for protection. Based on folklore and observations from nature, the attributes of a person's birth animal, referred to as 띠 in Korean, were also used to determine one's destiny, disposition, and even relationships with others.
Monkeys are highly intelligent, sociable, adept, as well as entertaining. They can work well in groups of hundreds to just a few and manage to communicate and solve problems efficiently with one another. They're highly expressive creatures.
And to this day, Koreans still keep track of their 띠 and are optimistic when their year comes around. However, like horoscopes in the West, the zodiac signs are now viewed as more entertainment than prophecy. And fire monkeys are generally said to be competitive, determined, and more ambitious than the rest of their species. So why not take the best of these qualities and live out a more boisterous year with the monkey's flame of passion? Though you might be inclined to go a bit bananas. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Now, as the world prepares to go a bit bananas and bid farewell to 2015 and ring in the new year, there is a darker side because there is unprecedented security in place across Europe to protect people there from possible terror attacks on New Year's Eve. Jong-un has the details.
Berlin is busy with preparations ahead of Germany's biggest open-air party to be held at the Brandenburg Gate. Officials have laid on extra security measures for the event, which is expected to draw hundreds of thousands of revelers. To keep guests safe, large bags, glass bottles, and pointed objects will be prohibited.
After recent events, we have again raised surveillance, added more security guards, and imposed stricter entry inspections.
The situation is no different in other parts of Europe. About 3,000 police officers will be on duty in central London for New Year's Eve celebrations, while Britain maintains its second highest terror alert level of severe.
So the aim of the plan is to provide a strong but proportionate response and to reassure people so they can come into London and enjoy the festivities.
Authorities across Europe say they have already foiled terror attacks planned for New Year's Eve. Turkey's state media reported Wednesday that police detained 2 suspected Islamic State militants who were believed to be planning suicide bombings in Ankara. In Belgium, prosecutors have arrested 2 people suspected of planning attacks at a number of popular sites throughout Brussels. Security is also tight in the Netherlands after warning that terrorists may be planning to launch an attack in Amsterdam during the New Year celebrations. Paris, still reeling from the shocking terror attacks in November, has decided to mark the coming of the new year with sobriety and remembrance. A fireworks display has been cancelled while some 60,000 police and troops have been deployed throughout the country as a security measure. 손정인, Arirang News.
Now, here at Arirang TV, we have the great privilege of covering a wide range of domestic news stories, from everything a ruling that adultery is no longer a crime, to the bribery list scandal that rocked the political arena, and the MERS outbreak. There is never a lack of interesting stories, and that was certainly the case in 2015. Our Lee takes us through 10 of the year's biggest.
Right out of the gate on January 1st, a new cigarette tax went into effect, raising prices up by 2,000 won a pack. Later that month, an 18-year-old Korean teenager with the surname Kim left Korea to join ISIS. On February 11th, there was a 106-car pileup on a foggy bridge, leaving 2 people dead and 65 injured. In the same month, the Constitutional Court ruled that having an affair is no longer a crime in Korea. Since 1953, adultery had been a punishable criminal offense with a maximum sentence of 2 years in jail. But on February 26, 2015, the Constitutional Court ruled the adultery law was against the Constitution as it violates a citizen's basic rights. The next big story on March 5th was the attack on U.S. Ambassador to Korea, Mark Lippert. The ambassador had cuts to his hand and face, but the injuries were not life-threatening. In April, businessman Jong-un committed suicide, leaving a memo in his pocket listing 8 high-profile politicians who he argued had accepted bribes from him. That same month, lawmakers passed a bill making security cameras mandatory at daycare centers after several reports of child abuse at local centers. Next on the list is the outbreak of Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS. It all began when a businessman came back to Korea after a trip to the Middle East. He was infected with the deadly virus and health authorities didn't catch it. The result, 186 people contracted the virus and 38 died. MERS also revealed a hole in Korea's quarantine network and raised discussion about the Korean custom of having family or hired caregivers in hospital rooms to look after patients. The Korean government formally declared an end to the MERS outbreak on December 23rd, though there are still 2 people with MERS who are in the hospital in stable condition. On November 14th, tens of thousands of protesters came out to central Seoul to rally against the government's labor reform plans and its plans to retake control of history textbook publishing. On December 3rd, the Justice Ministry announced its plan to replace the existing bar exam system that began in the 1970s with a new Western-style law school system. It would be put off until 2021. The move drew strong objections from people who want the bar exam system kept. But for a long time, the old bar exam system had been criticized for fostering exclusivity among an elite group. And there you have it, the top 10 domestic news stories of 2015.
Well, that's pretty much all we have for now. Thank you as always for joining us, and thank you for being with us as well throughout 2015. It really has been our pleasure to bring you all the news from Korea and around the world. And on behalf of everyone on the Arirang news team, very, very happy New Year and best wishes for 2016. Goodbye.